notes. Make sure the guitar is tuned. Where am I? Let's see. Tune. All right. It is in tune. All right, let's get this thing all set. Okay, here we go. Let's get a song from our song book. Okay, let me try something. Bring down the song. Doesn't sound like it's in tune. Hold on a second. Okay. Jaya Rane, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan, Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohan. Shima Kunda Rana Kunda Giri Govardhan Kalani Jamuna Jaya Jaya Madhavan Keshigan Vamshimada Vatashakakna Yakatsamuni Lakoila Shinananana Shinanda Yashoda Jaya Jaya Gopaka Shri Jaya Jaya Veda Vatsadan Jaya Vresha Manu Jaya Kitira Sundari Jaya Purnamasi Jaya Viratnagari Jaya Jaya Gopishara Vrindavana Jaya Jaya Krishna Sakavatu Jaya Rama Gata Jaya Ronini Nanda Jaya Jaya Vrindavasita Janna Jaya Dvijapati Jaya Nakakanya Bhakti Jaya Gora Baila Govinda Charan Shri Rasa Manala Jaya Jaya Radha Jaya Jaya Rasa Leela Sarvamana Jaya 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 Rasa Sarvarasa Paragiya Pavaga Brajate Prajago Shri Janama Padma Padma Korea Smaran Dina Krishna Dasa Koe Nama Sankirtan Jaya Rame Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramahansa also Teta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Sabaya Chalana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Hridas Thakur Ki Jai Ram Say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sai Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuranam Ki Jai Jagadasami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bastaya Budale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Samadhi Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarne. So we're going to read the translation to this poem written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. All glories to Radha Krishna and the divine forest of Vrindavana. All glories to the three presiding deities of Vrindavan, Shri Govinda, Gopinath, and Madan Mohan. All glories to Shamakund, Radhakund, Govardhan Hill, and Yamuna River, Kalindi. All glories to the great forest known as Mahavan. All glories to Keshiga, the Vamshiva tree, and the 12 forests of Braj. At these places, the son of Nanda, Shri Krishna, performed all of his pastimes. All glories to Krishna's divine father and mother, Nanda and Yashoda. All glories to the cowherd boys, headed by Sridham. All glories to the cows and calves of Braja. All glories to Radha's divine father and mother, Rishabhanu, and the beautiful Kirtida. All glories to Purnamasi, the mother of Sandipani Muni. All glories to the young cowherd maidens of Braja. All glories to Gopishra Shiva, who resides in Vrindavan in order to protect the holy Dham. All glories to Krishna's funny Brahmin friend, Madhumangal. All glories to Ramaghat, where Lord Balaram performed his rasa dance. All glories to Lord Balaram, the son of Rohini. All glories to all the residents of Vrindavana. All glories to the wives of the proud Vedic Brahmanas. All glories to the wives of the Kaliya serpent. Through pure devotion, they all obtain the lotus feet of Lord Govinda. All glories to the place where the rasa dance of Shri Krishna was performed. All glories to Radha and Shyam. All glories to the divine rasa dance, which is the most beautiful of all Lord Krishna's pastimes. All glories to the mellow of conjugal love, which is the most excellent of all rasas and is propagated in Braja by Shri Krishna in the form of the divine Parakiya Bhav. Remembering the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda's consort, Sri Janavadevi, this very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna sings the Sankirtan of the holy name. Jai, Sankirtan of the holy name. So, just give me 1 second, I have to get something. Right. Okay, so now we'll continue with our study of the Jaiva Dharma. Thank you all for joining us. Today is Sunday. We just had a previous class about a little while ago. The previous class ended about an hour ago. So anyway, Om Ganat Timirandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, let us share the screen, and we'll see the Jaiva Dharma where we left off. Here we go. So we actually previously, let's just bring us up to speed a little bit. Previously we were talking about deep impressions, and if you remember how I described deep impressions, I described them as samskaras. Now, if you don't know what a samskara is, it's not just a performance like a ritual that you do. It is actually creating an impression. So someone who has bad samskaras, that means they have bad impressions, it's sometimes known as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And someone who has good impressions, well, that's just good karma. Or devotional service. So anyway, that's deep impressions, and I mentioned before, the deep impressions can be made by Krishna consciousness or by Maya consciousness. And by chanting, you get rid of the Maya consciousness deep impressions in the heart. And by Krishna consciousness, you put some really deep bhakti impressions. Okay, so next question. Brajanath said, I want to know who is qualified for rasa tattva. Rasa tattva means the understanding of the taste of devotional service, or the really intimate taste of devotional service. Understanding what your rasa is. Wow. What your bhav is. What your rati is. Your rati, bhav, and rasa. You got those three things? And they're all connected. Rati means the relationship. Rasa means the taste of the relationship. And bhav means the emotions from the relationship. So Goswami said, only the person who has been able to bring the inconceivable bhav or emotions to his heart by deep impressions, that means in the past, Prabhu, as described, is qualified for rasa tattva. Others are not qualified. Rupa Goswami said, in other words, you have to figure out if you're qualified. Otherwise, you just do your sadhana right now. Gatitya bhavana vartma yas chamatkara karabu ridi sanvojvale vadam swadate sarasomata. That which becomes even more intensely relished in the heart, made bright with Ladini and Sambit Shaktis. Ladini is the pleasure potent, Sambit is the cognitive knowing potency, which means actually you attain bhava. After surpassing the stage of distinguishing the constituent bhavas, constituent bhavas means, again, the same thing, vibhava, anubhava, sattvika bhava, vyabhachari bhava, and ultimately sthai bhava. And if you don't understand what that means, well, you probably haven't been listening to us the last few days. But I'll explain. Vibhava stimulates. Anubhava is the voluntary action. Bhava means emotion. Voluntary action that you get or you make when you have some emotional stimulation. Sattvika bhava is the bhavas that are part of your nature due to your contacting the mode, transcendental mode of goodness. Vyabhachari bhavas are the intermittent ecstasies that are uncontrollable. There's 33 of them. And finally, sthai bhava means your foundational emotion based upon your foundational relationship, which is either neutral, servitorship, friendship, parental, or ultimately conjugal. Okay. That's constituent bhavas. And which becomes more astonishing bliss than bhava. Wow. Even more astonishing in happiness than your ecstasies is called ras, or the taste. It's interesting that, yes, there's a difference between taste and emotion. There's okay, so let's say you taste something that's very sweet. That's a sweet taste. But then you feel happy, that's the emotion. Okay, little understanding. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.5, 132. And Goswami said, Brajanath is asking, let me take some water because I've just been preaching for the last 2 hours or 3 hours. Prajnath says, who is unqualified for us to understand the taste relationship is an offense to give the holy name to the unqualified. Is it? It is an offense. Is it an offense to explain ras to the unqualified person, Prabhu? Please warn us low persons in this regard. So Goswami said, vairagya, that means renunciation, which is indifferent to pure bhakti, is called false or falgu vairagya, which means false renunciation. Jnana, knowledge which is indifferent to pure bhakti, is dry or shushka jnana, which is dry jnana, dry knowledge. The devotees who taste rasa hide Krishna bhakti rasa from persons whose hearts are consumed with that renunciation, vairagya, just dry renunciation, from dry gyanis, speculators, from skeptics fixed in logic, from persons fond of karma mimamsa. Karma mimamsa basically means if you act nicely, you'll get a nice result, which is atheistic philosophy. And uttara mimamsa, dealing with uttara means the higher spiritual understanding of the Vedic literatures, dealing without devotional service. There's some higher principles in Vedic literatures, not the highest, but the higher principles which deal with dry knowledge, and from persons who have no taste for bhakti, and from kevala dvaitis. Kevala dvaitis. That means one who thinks that everything is one. I'm God, you're God, we're all God, God is just one, God is everything, like that. Just as one protects a great treasure from thieves. In other words, all these people who don't understand spiritual life at all should not be told about all rasa, because it'll be like throwing pearls before swine. Swine means piggies. Brajanath said, I have been very fortunate. I will follow your order. Vijay Kumar said, Prabhu, I have spent my life studying Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is the scripture describing Ras. Is it an offense to recite it to ordinary people to earn a living? This is really important. So here's Vijay Kumar, who's an expert logician, expert person studying the Bhagavatam and all the Vedic literatures. He says, that's how I've been supporting myself all along. This is actually really instructive for us too. Not me as a sannyasi. I'm supporting myself, whatever. I'm supporting the Krishna conscious movement. So, is it an offense to recite it to ordinary people to earn a living? Two things. Can we recite it to ordinary people, and can we recite it to earn a living? This is an interesting question. Okay, let's go down. Goswami said, Bhagavatam is the crest jewel of all scriptures. It is talking about Srimad Bhagavatam, obviously, is the very fruit of all the scriptures. One should follow what is stated in the first canto, third verse. Mohoraho rasika bhuvi ba vuka. Except for the rasika or ba vuka, no one is qualified to drink the ras of Bhagavatam. Someone who's really into loving Krishna. Give up this profession immediately. Ooh! So stop reciting the Bhagavatam to get money. In other words, we've seen people who do this, what's called Bhagavat Saptahas. What is a Bhagavat Saptaha? It's a 7-day recitation of Bhagavatam, imitating Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami, Shukadeva Goswami recited for 7 days at the behest of Parikshit Maharaj. So he says, give it up. Goswami says, give up this professional recitation, the imitation of Goswami, of Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, and give up making this money business using spiritual life. That's a conflict of interest. If one uses spiritual life to make money, there's no benefit to that spiritually. The only benefit is the money. Prabhupada said that if one gets a salary for serving Krishna, then the only benefit you get, hold on a second, a piece of cloth is caught here in the chair. The only benefit you get from that activity is the money itself. Give up this profession. You are thirsty for Ras. Do not make an offense to Ras. Rasa Vaisa. Rasa is Krishna himself. There are many professions mentioned in the scriptures for supporting the body. Please use those. Do not earn money by reciting Bhagavatam to ordinary people. If one finds hearers who are rasikas, you can have them hear Bhagavatam in bliss without accepting a fee. So it's really important. We don't perform our devotional service to get money, to support ourselves. If you want to support yourself, get a job, Prabhu. And that'll be the proper way. So, of course, if someone's doing full-time service for Krishna, then the temple may maintain them, but there's no salary involved. Salary means that's what you get for your service. You get your salary, and that's it. Vijay Prabhupada said that. It's not for me. Please don't get angry. Vijay Kumar said, Prabhu, today you have saved me from a great offense. What should I do about my previous offense? Goswami said, that offense will not remain. You have surrendered to Ras with a sincere heart. Ras will forgive you. Do not think about this any longer. In other words, what you did before, you didn't know, what was the right thing, what was the wrong thing. So just chant Hare Krishna. You don't worry about the past, because you can't do anything about it. The devotee doesn't have to perform prayaschitta, austerities, to purify himself from the past. It's a wonderful garland. That's why I keep smelling it. This is offered to the deities. It's beautiful flowers. I wish it would stay fresh forever. Wonderful. All right. That offense will not remain. You have surrendered to Ras. Ras will forgive you. Do not think about this any longer. Vijay Kumar said, Prabhu, I will nourish my body by some low occupation. It's interesting. Let me just look at something here. So Vijay Kumar was the one, not Brajanath, who was actually doing it. But Vijay Kumar ends up taking sannyas, so it's not a problem. Okay. So Vijay Kumar says, Prabhu, I will nourish my body by some low occupation. I will not glorify Ras to unqualified people and will not take money from them for doing such glorification. Goswami said, you are fortunate. Krishna has made you his own. Otherwise, how could you have such firmness and bhakti? You are a resident of Navadvip. Gauranga has given you all Shakti, or energy. And, whoops, what happens now? Oh, that was it for that chapter. It was chapter 28. Now we go to chapter 29. Shantaras, Dasharas, and Sakyaras. Shanta means, now we're going to talk about the rasas individually. Shanta means like passive adoration of Krishna. Whoops, let me see. Let me see the volume, make sure the volume is up enough. Sometimes the volume goes down on this. All right, give me a second. Oh, looks like the volume is high enough. Okay, so Shantaras, Dasharas, and Sakyaras. Peaceful ras, servitude, ras, or taste, and Sakya ras, that means friendship with Krishna. Brajanath and Vijay Kumar decided to spend Chaturmasha in Puri. Chaturmasha is the 4 months. Usually it's a rainy season. They would receive the method of worshipping using ras and hearing the deliberation on all types of ras from the mouth of Guru Goswami. Brajanath's grandmother, who was with them, agreed to the proposal on hearing the glories of living for Chaturmash in Puri. She didn't attend the darshans with Goswami, but she was just like a good devotee anyway. They all took darshan of Lord Jagannath in the morning and evening. Wow. They took bath in the Narendra Sarovara and saw all the tirthas. When Jagannath had special services and dresses, they would have darshan with all the devotees. Guru Goswami was overjoyed to see their inclination. He said, let me just change this thing here. I don't like having my computer on a cloth because computers are not supposed to be on cloths because they can't be ventilated properly. Okay. Guru Goswami was overjoyed to see their inclination. He said, Brajanath, Vijay Kumar, I have such deep affection for you, and that it will be difficult to separate from you. I'd be happy for as long as you stay. Although one may easily find a good guru, it is not easy to find a good disciple. Yeah, tell me all about it. Prajanath humbly asked, Prabhu, please explain ras, showing the vibhavas and other ingredients of the various rasas. That would be our good fortune to hear. So the ingredients of the rasas again, that's vibhava, anubhava, the sattvika bhava, vyabhachari bhava, and sthai bhava. So I already explained it in this class, so you'll have to just look it up if you don't remember. Goswami said, that is a good proposal. Hear what Gauranga makes me say. First I will explain Shanta Ras. This is peaceful. Shanta means peaceful. In this Ras, Shanti is the sthai bhava. In other words, Shanti means peacefulness, is your emotion. The bliss of impersonal Brahman and the yogi's happiness of realizing Atma is very little. Happiness from the Lord is much deeper than that. Realizing the form of the Lord is the cause of happiness. So in other words, this Shantaras is not the Shantaras where you just merge into Brahman. The alambana, that means what stimulates Shantaras, or this peaceful ras, or adoration of Krishna in a reverent mood, is the four-armed form of Narayan, as Krishna's official form as God. He is endowed with qualities like pervasion. He's all pervaded. Pervasion. I'd say it's better to say all pervasion, all pervading. Pervasion is not commonly used. Power, etc. He is the Vishaya, that means the enjoyer or the focal point of a devotee's devotion within the alambana, which is stimulation of the direct form of the Lord. Peaceful persons are the ashraya, that means who the people have the bhakti takes shelter of Shanta, peaceful love or peaceful relationship. These peaceful persons are atmaramas. They're satisfied in themselves, satisfied by the self, and performers of austerity who have firm faith in the Lord. So they're very peaceful. They have nothing to desire. They're just self-satisfied. That's what amarama means. And now we give some examples of different atmaramas, which these are famous examples. The four Kumaras are the chief atmaramas. They wander about naked. That doesn't mean you have to be naked to be an atmarama. First of all, they had rati for impersonal Brahman. They had a taste or relationship with the impersonal Brahman. Attracted by the sweetness of the Lord's form, they began to worship the form of condensed consciousness, condensed happiness. So in other words, first they were just impersonalists. They just thought, everything is impersonal. But they didn't know any better. They were like agnostics. And after that, when they came in touch with Krishna, with actually Lord Vishnu, when they came to the border of the spiritual world, with that whole interaction of Jai and Vijay, then they came in contact with the Lord, and then they smelled the tulsi leaves off of the lotus feet of the Lord, and the garlands and everything like that, and they just became attracted. Therefore, they're called the Atmaramas, people who are self-satisfied. The performers of austerities, giving up material enjoyment by yukta vairagya. Yukta vairagya sounds like someone is just upstairs. So, enjoyment by yukta vairagya. Yukta vairagya means accepting things for Krishna and serving Krishna using the material world. In order to be free of all obstacles, these people are able to enter the Shanta Ras, although they have not removed the desire for liberation. So, in other words, they're the beginning. So the unique stimuli, and this indirectly Krishna Prashanta Rasa, hearing the principal Upanishads, living in a solitary place, the appearance of pure mental functions, just being absorbed in the mind, I guess. pure mental functions, that means the mode of goodness, transcendental goodness, contemplating the truth, putting emphasis on the vidya shakti, power of knowledge. They're very much into jnana, or knowledge. Visualizing the universal form. Prabhupada said the universal form is not that lovable, but they visualize and they become peaceful. Not loving, but peaceful. Associating with Jnana Mishra Bhaktas. What is Jnana Mishra? Jnana Mishra means devotees whose devotion is mixed with a desire for liberation or desire to acquire knowledge. It's a mixed devotion. It's not Shuddha Bhakta. And discussing the Upanishads with similar persons. They're very much attached to the Upanishads. So these are things that stimulate them. These are called udipanas, which means indirect, things that are not directly Krishna but related to Krishna, that stimulate their love, their bhava, love, same thing, or motion. Yeah, actually rati would be love, but bhava is emotion. The incomparable fragrance of the tulasi at the feet of the Lord. I mean, it's really fragrant. I mean, for example, all right, here we go again with a vibhava. This is the fragrance of a garland that was on Radharani's head. Oh my God, look at this beautiful garland. And I smell it. And wow, I'm not saying I'm in Shantarati, that's not my point, Prabhus. But I smell it, and you got these other flowers here, man. Okay. That's called anudipana. Not directly, it's not directly Radharani and Krishna, but it's related to Radharani and Krishna. I could smell it all day long. I'd like to package this fragrance. Anyway, these are stimulations. The sound of the Lord's conch, holy mountains, like Govardhan, holy forests, like Vrindavan forest, holy places like Vrindavan, the Ganga, that means the river, temporary nature of things of this world. When you see things that are temporary, they become stimulated. The power of time to destroy everything. Look at everybody's getting old. And that's an udipana for the Shanta, the peaceful bhaktas. This is the vibhava. Okay, vibhava means the stimulations again. This is what stimulates people who are just in the peaceful, God is great mode. They haven't yet come to servitude. So Prajna said, what are the anubhavas of this ras? So anubhava means the voluntary expressions that one makes upon being stimulated by the vibhava. How about that? Staring at the tip of the nose. Behaving like a renunciate, like me. Walking while looking 4 meters in front of on the ground. I actually do that to avoid actually tripping. So showing the jnana mudra. That's this. You see this sometimes. Jnana mudra. Yes. Krishna's God. Absence of hatred. Joining the thumb and forefinger together. Absence of hatred even towards the enemies of the Lord. Lack of intense attachment to the devotees of the Lord. You know, you're not that attached. So that's why I know I'm not in Shantarati, because I'm attached to the devotees. But they're not really attached too much. They're just like the opulence of the Lord is what really convinces them. Showing great regard for the final destruction of the material bondage. Yeah, get out of this hellish place. And for living without the influence of the gross and subtle bodies. Let me get rid of this body. You know, people thinking like that, that could be, if they're great devotees, that could be a sign of Shantarati. Indifference, non-possessiveness, lack of false ego. I mean, many of these qualities are there in the more advanced rasas. And silence, monovrata, are some of the special anubhavas of the person with Shanta Ras. Other anubhavas of the Shanta Bhakta are yawning, stretching the body, giving instructions on bhakti. I guess I'm doing all those things. Doesn't mean I'm Shantarati. Offering obeisances to the Lord, I do that. And reciting praises of the Lord, I do that too. So actually I do all those. But the anubhavas are also manifest in other devotees too, who are not Shantarati. It's that they're not, or let's use logic. If you have Shantarati, you exhibit these anubhavas. But it's not necessarily true that if you have the anubhavas, you're in Shantarati. You can be in many of the other rasas. What are the sattvika bhavas? Alrighty. There's 8 of them. The 8 emotions connected with Shantaras. And these 8 emotions, again, sattvika means the mode of transcendental goodness that is actually part of one's nature. The bhavas, the emotions that are actually connected with your connecting the mode of goodness, the prana connecting the mode of goodness. They're physical things usually. In Shantarati, Goswami said, Shantarati, all the sattvika bhavas, such as the standing on hair on end, and these occur in other relationships too, perspiration, shaking of the body, occur to a large degree. However, fainting, pralaya, does not occur. No, because a Shantarati, Shanta devotee, is just like very peaceful. Why is he going to faint? There's no emotions, intense emotions. In fact, he's trying to get rid of all these emotions. That's his objective. The sattvika bhavas do not attain a state of dipta, which means intense light, like that. It's just not. They don't attain that state. Prajna said, what are the sanchari bhavas? This brahmachari, sanchari, the same thing. It means the emotions that move throughout the body. Goswami said, in Shantaras, the sanchari bhavas of nirveda, it's detachment, triti, determination, harsha, happiness, mati, smriti, remembrance, vishada, I don't know all these words, sukya, anvega, and vitarka. Vitarka means argumentation, and others ordinarily appear. Too bad it doesn't have a footnote with all those definitions. I know some of them. Prajna said, how many types of Shantaratis are there? Shantarati, now we're talking about the sthai bhavas. Okay. So you actually see that let's go back to the sanchari bhavas, none of them really entail like really intense ecstasies. These are just like, peaceful ecstasies, if you could say that. They don't really lose too much control. But they like to argue. Vitarka means to argue. I would have to look up those other words. I don't have time right now. So, how many types of Shantaratis? And Goswami says there are 2 types of Shantarati, Sama and Sundara. Sama Shantarati is equal poise. It's indicated when in the yogi's body absorbed in asam pragyat samadhi. Asam pragyat, it would not change things. Begins to shake to the extreme when the Lord appears. Wow. That's a subjective ecstasy. That would appear to be a vyabhachari bhava. Sandra Shantarati is described as follows in Nirvikalpa, no quality, samadhi. After destroying all ignorance, when one sees Krishna directly, the bliss becomes more concentrated. Ooh. Okay, he's going to describe here what that means. There are 2 types of Shanta Ras. Paroksha, which means not visible, and Shakatkara, visible. Shukadev and Bilvamangal, giving up the samskaras of jnana, the impressions of jnana, which you talked about impressions before, became full of bliss of bhakti rasa. A sarvabhauma, Bhattacharya was also in the same situation. So, in other words, it was visible. That's Shak Satkara song. It's very technical here. All right. Yeah. Rajanath said, why does material alankara, that means poetry or drama, not accept Shantaras? So, in other words, in the material world, it's not so interesting to write a drama or poem about someone who was just like peaceful. It's pretty boring. So you need some action, some other type of rust there. Even if you introduce a character like that, you can't develop that character because he's just like too damn peaceful. And so Goswami said, when peace comes, this is exactly what I just said, comes in material affairs, variety disappears. And if there's no variety, there's no enjoyment. And there's some definitions here. Anyway, we'll skip those. With the appearance of Shanta Ras, which is spiritual, excellent spiritual ras appears. The Lord has said that fixing the intelligence on the Lord is shama, equipoised. One cannot fix the mind on the Lord except by Shantarati. Thus one must accept Shantaras in the spiritual sphere, because there's varieties in the spiritual Shantaras. In the material Shantaras, there's no variety. It's actually quite a boring thing. It's very boring. Until you get to servitude, or friendship, or parental, or conjugal, it's actually quite boring. Nobody wants to hear about it. Here's the yogi, for example. Let's just say, hypothetically, here's the yogi who's meditating on Brahman, and he's chanting Om, or meditating on the Supreme Lord. He has his eyes half closed, looking at the tip of his nose, and thinking of the form of the Lord and feeling bliss. Okay. Boring. It's nice for him, but it's not fully satisfying until he begins to serve the Lord, and it's a boring story to tell. So, Brajanath said, I've understood Shantaras well. Now please explain the ingredients of Dasharas. So, I guess we'll start with this. Goswami said the learned called Dasha Ras, Dasha means servitude, taste, servitude, relationship, as Priti Bhakti Ras. That means loving. Bhakti also means unalloyed love. Ras, dear. Priti, just like sometimes using the same word, someone will call their wife Priya. It means deer. Not the deer that runs around with other deer. The learned called Dasharas as Priti Bhakti Ras. There are two types. It's interesting. So we've gone ahead to Dasharas. When the recipient of mercy acts as a servant, Dasha, it is called Sambrahma Priti. Okay, the love, or the love, dear, which is means deeply connected. When the recipient identifies himself as the object of parental affection of Krishna, which is called Lalya, it is called Gaurava Priti. It's really interesting. So two types of Dasharas. One type is one thinks I'm a servant, the other type thinks I'm the son of Krishna or something like that. And therefore Krishna, I serve Krishna, but in that particular mood, as being the object of parental affection. Krishna's will take care of me like that. That's interesting. But I'm going to serve him, but Krishna's going to take care of me. Really, really interesting. Two types of Dasharas. Okay. I think we will go ahead and unmute you and allow you to ask questions because it's the time. And we'll go ahead with Dasharas tomorrow. It's quite technical, and you don't have to remember all these terms, but just you can appreciate how precise bhakti, devotional service, Krishna consciousness is. It's not simply some sentimental thing. You've got to love God, but basically, what are the varieties of love of God? How to love God? How do we distinguish? What is the emotion connected? What is the taste connected? All these things are part of the teachings which Srila Prabhupada and our disciplic succession have given us. So we should be very appreciative. So, with that in mind, I am going to unmute you all, or allow you all to unmute yourselves, and then we take some questions. Okay, you are allowed to unmute yourself. And so, Abhay Chaitanya, you have a question. What is your question?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Please accept my respectful obeisances.
Good to hear from you.
Jai. Gurudev, just on the Shantaras. So, just trying to understand in the spiritual world, how is that manifested? Because can that be your sthaya bhav? And I understand it's you in that rasa you're not quite prepared to undertake service. So just want to know how that actually works in the spiritual world.
That was previously mentioned. That in the spiritual world, those who are in the Shanta Rati, that's their primary point, but they slip into other moods from time to time. That was mentioned previously in our readings. And they do render service. And I gave you the example of a tree in Vrindavan.
Okay.
The tree in Vrindavan is in Shantarati. It's appreciating Krishna, but as a side note, it's actually rendering service by providing fruit and shade to Krishna. So there is some mixture of servitude. There has to be. Without that mixture, the living entity wouldn't be in the spiritual world, because our constant position is Jivera Swarupa Necha Krishna Das. How's that sound? Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, Gurudev. I must have missed that bit. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for asking the question. I'm just going to, while we're talking, I'm just going to plug in my fan that brings in the air from the outside, because they're cooking in the kitchen, and I'm very sensitive to smells. And I can start joking. All right, there we go. I'm very, very sensitive to different smells. Of course, that's a good sign, as I mentioned yesterday. That means I don't have Alzheimer's disease. That's one of the signs of Alzheimer's disease, is that one doesn't smell anything. Okay, here's another question from Sumukha Devidasi. I know it's not Devidasi. It's from Sumukha. He says, pure devotional service gets rid of material miseries. Sometimes we know that our families are suffering, and we feel pain when we hear about them. So what to do? Our compassion for others from a Krishna conscious perspective is not a material misery. That we have to understand. But what to do about it? We pray for them, try to encourage them, try to give them as much Krishna consciousness as they're able to accept, and ultimately understand it's up to Krishna. Krishna, everybody has their own relationship to Krishna. You got to drive your own chariot. You got to drive your own airplane. Like Prabhupada said that the spiritual master teaches one. It's like the teacher who's teaching you how to fly an airplane, but ultimately you got to fly solo. So everybody has their own path in life. I mean, I realize that taking the position or service as spiritual master, that I'm not really responsible for how people decide to take the knowledge or guidance I'm giving them. I'm not responsible for that. That's up to them. Yet if I feel responsibility for that, whoo, it can drive me crazy. I'll take all their karma, which I don't want to take. So my responsibility goes so far as to give people good instructions, guidance, set a good example for everybody. That's it. That's it. Pray to Krishna for them. That's it. And if someone decides, for example, not to accept instructions, then what can I do? I'm not going to get all upset, feel guilty about it. That feeling guilty could drive one crazy. It's like this, in mature relationships, that's called codependency. Codependency. So, having my particular service for Prabhupada, I developed that, healthy detachment. I care for them. I'm concerned when someone makes the wrong choices, but it's not my fault. Even if it happens to be a disciple, it's not my fault. I tried my best. I gave them good instruction. They have Prabhupada's books, and that's, Hare Krishna. So that's how to deal with people who make the wrong decisions or are not Krishna conscious. But I just have to give everybody the opportunity, but that's up to them. All right, there's a good question. So, thank you, Sumuki Devi Das. No, it's actually a man. I know Sumuka. Of course, his wife is also a Mukha lady. So, okay. So, who else has a question?
Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances.
Okay, Rakesh. So, what's the question?
The word rati means relationship or love?
The word what?
Rati.
Can mean both things. Rati, generally, like rati, like it can mean attachment. The basic meaning of the word rati, it's a platform of devotional service. It can mean attachment. It can mean relationship. Different contexts or attachment and love, so. But then, if you really want to have love, then it's prema. Prema is actually love. But rati means more like attachment, one's attachment. In other words, one's attachment determines one's relationship. So it's very much connected. Like say, I'm attached to Krishna being his friend. So that's my relationship. So it's just like, you could use that also in English. What's your specific attachment to your father? Well, my attachment is I'm his son. Right? So that's the point. So it can be used synonymously because the attachment or taste, it can also mean taste, or my taste. Well, taste is rasa, sorry. But my attachment is actually the same as my relationship. So, Rati Bas. Okay.
Thank you, Gurudev. Thank you.
Is Bhakti Devi the same as Tulsi Devi? That's an interesting question. Yeah, well, sometimes we say that, Bhakti Devi, Tulsi Devi, Gijai. And, these are all Bhakti Devi. I mean, when we talk about these Nityasura personalities, they're all expansions from the Ladini Shakti and the personification of the Ladini Shakti, which is Srimati Radharani. So they're all manifestations. So we actually often call Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi. But of course, at the same time, anyone who's giving us devotion is a personification of bhakti. So whether that's a generic term for anyone who's giving us devotion, a repository of devotion or not, that we have to see. But we do call Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi. Bhakti Devi. Okay? Good question. Anyone else have a question? No. Okay, yeah, it's time. So thank you very much. We are in Sacramento still, and hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to give the class. Same time, same station. And we'll be here in Sacramento tomorrow, and the next day we're heading back to good old NC, North Carolina. So, thank you. All glories to His divine grace. A.C. Bhakti